Here's what I hate about impact fees. All the people initiating these impact fees already live in their homes, right? So is it going to affect them?
So we are joined by Randy French, who is the founder and I guess establisher, if that's a word, of Stylecraft Home Builders. And so we're really thankful to have him here today to talk about mainly impact fees. So thank you so much for coming on Think Brazos.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So you started Stylecraft Builders, which I believe is one of the largest home builders in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. You started that in the 80s?
Yeah, I started in 86, 87, back when the economy totally bottomed out. I mean, nothing was around. And I mean, wow. You know, just you were crazy to build a house back then, but I've always been crazy. But it was hard to eke out a living, and I was in real estate development with some friends of ours. We went for a year without taking a salary, and I said I had 3 kids, can't do this much longer. So I started building a home or two at a time, and here I am today.
So you started out that small, where you started with 1 or 2 homes.
Yeah.
And so now your son, who manages the company and is the owner now, Doug French, I believe.
Yes.
They now build how many homes a year? Do you know?
I think we'll close about 1,000 this year. Yeah.
God.
So it's grown substantially.
Wow. And it's still in private hands. It's not a public offering type business.
No, it's 100% owned. In fact, I sold him the company in the last couple of years, the balance of it, so he owns 100% of it. It's his fault, not mine.
All right. And its headquarters, is it in Bryan College Station?
Yeah, we're here in on the Arrowwater Free Range College Station, our home headquarters.
Well, that's great. And just some inside baseball, Stylecraft has been very generous with the Habitat program, which Think Brazos is a part of Habitat for Humanity, a podcast. So we do want to thank you for all the times in the past that you and your son have wanted to help a family out through this way. So we really appreciate that.
Our pleasure, our way to give back. We love it.
So you no longer are owner of the company. When did that transition happen with your son taking over?
A year and a half ago, something like that.
Okay, so it's pretty recent.
A lot of it's done for estate reasons, but the other reason was he runs the company, he does it, and I've been around here forever, and people always come to me for things, and he was the one doing it.
Right.
And I thought, and he's a hard worker, smart, intelligent, high character guy, and I thought, I'm just in his way.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that ugly, but and he never said that to me. I infer that, but it's his time to bask in the sun. He's doing the work, and he's taking care of it, and he's good the credit if credit's due, the criticism if criticism's due. And I wasn't ready to retire, but I'm not retired. I'm still working on some real estate development and some nonprofit boards and that sort of thing. But anyway, it's been a pleasure to have your son. I've always said it's like a relay race. You're running the relay race. You're on the third leg, and you hand the baton off to the fastest person for the kick, and that's my son Doug, and he just is taking it, and I'm over there watching him run the lap. But that's great. It's an honor to have him. Now, he worked with me. He got his MBA out of Baylor, and he came after his undergrad at A&M, and came. So he's worked for me, or with me, not for me, with me for 10 years. So, and before that, even in high school, he'd work in our warehouse or do punch lists. I mean, he's been a grunt. He'd been a low man on the totem pole, and I think that's one reason he's respected is because he's been there and done that, not just talking about it. But anyway, it's been a real honor and pleasure to have him run the show.
And does Stylecraft still, to this day, specialize in starter homes? I haven't looked into it a lot, but that's kind of the sense that I've gotten.
Yeah, entry level and then first time move up. Yeah, so our bailiwick has always been first time buyer, and then maybe that second time buyer as well, or retiree, or somebody just looking for something with the affordable side. So investment property, newlyweds, people graduating from school, life changes, first, second time move up. We'll do those as well. And so we kind of hit that gamut, but we're not in the luxury market.
Right. That's what it seemed like.
Which is where I started.
Did you?
And I learned real quick that's not where I want to end.
During the recession in the 80s?
Well, it wasn't so much that. I mean, unfortunately, I've always been fairly successful with whatever we build. Thank the good Lord for that. But it is more it was never really my passion. It was a lot of dealing one-on-one with people and holding hands and changes and customization and all this stuff. And that, I don't know, that was never really my thing. I think I did a pretty good job with it, but we're now what we call a production builder. And we have been for 25, 30 years. So that's the part I like. And that's what I call the business of home building.
Got it.
That's what I enjoy. I love the marketing, the management, the people, the building of the homes. Yeah, I do it, or I did it, and you learn through osmosis.
Right.
But I never had a passion for that. So that we're very different from most builders. Have the passion for building.
Sure.
And then have to wrestle with the business part. I was right the opposite. I love the business part, and the building part was just something that that I did. And I think I did a good job. But you can, you hire for your weaknesses, and that was my
Sure.
weakness. And so we just hired really good, skilled people on the building side, and then watched them like a hawk. But
Right.
But I've always liked it. And Doug is much the same way. He's more the business person, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That just has me run a home building company.
Got it.
A little different take.
So let's pivot towards talking about impact fees in College Station for a minute. I know that's why we sat down today. And I was just curious your thoughts on it. There's been a lot of talk in College Station recently about impact fees and what direction the city is going to go. What is your take on impact fees as far as a policy, and is there any background you want to give us as far as how they first started using these?
Sure, yeah. I'll be honest, I battled the city for 2 or 3 years when they were debating this. We had a committee through the Home Builder Association, of which I was very active on, and we battled tooth and nail against it because of reasons I'm fixing to tell you. In theory, I understand. In theory, the pro impact fee guys or girls or people would tell you it's new homes that are causing us to have to go put new sewer plants in, extend streets, yada yada yada. And we think those people that own those homes out there ought to be the ones paying for that, not everyone else.
Right.
That's the theory. And there's some validity to that. I can acknowledge it. But here's the misnomer about it where I just really hated it, and there's several, but one is, and I want to give you a little background on
Sure.
what an impact fee is and how it's calculated. It's legislated by the state. I mean, as a city, you just can't come in and say, hey, we're going to be a $10,000 impact fee.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be proven
Okay.
where that's going to be used, how it's going to be used, and there's a formula. And I'm going to take this from memory. I couldn't find my files, but from my memory, here's what they do. Let's say that we're taking impact fees for streets.
Sure.
And what they do, the city can calculate, okay, the next 10 years, where we're going to need new streets.
Mm-hmm.
And not streets in the subdivision, but streets that lead up to them.
I see.
Because right now, developers pay for all the streets in the subdivisions,
Right.
as well as all the other
We do
utilities.
too. Yeah.
We're already paying for that. Yeah, you know about that. Okay, but the streets going up to it, who pays for that?
Right.
Well, that's where the impact fees come in.
I see. Okay.
And so the city does a study, what it's going to cost for the next 10 years to do those particular, they call it CIP projects for the streets. And let's say the number is $200 million, just to throw a number out. Then the state says, okay, of that fee, the maximum a city can recover through impact fee is 50% of it. So that'd be $100 million. Okay, but if you did $100 million and divide that by the number of building permits they're going to be taken over the next 10 years, you may end up with a $75,000 impact fee per home. Well, in California, in some places, they actually have that.
Right.
But in Texas, no way. I mean, that's just an absurd number. And so they go back usually on a percentage of that. In most cities, they all differ, but where they have been approved, College Stations is actually less than 10%, or it's right around 10%. From what I recall, 10% of what that total cost is going to be. And so I'm going, okay, you're putting these, and then in real numbers, an impact fee in College Station for many houses is around $7,500 right now by the time we do water, sewer, and roads. And there's some variations of all of it, but let's just use a round number.
And that's in addition to the other fees, right?
Yeah, there are additional building
all
permit fees and all the other things. So that's on top of what's already been paid. And so my point was, that's such a high fee for a lot of people, particularly first-time buyers, particularly the lower end. It's disproportionate. If you're building $1 million home, $7,500, okay, maybe you could argue that. But if you're building a $200,000 house, $7,500 is a huge difference. And so, to me, it was it only pays such a small fee anyway. 10%. I mean, sales tax runs what, 7.25%? Well, this is just paying 10% of what it's going to cost. So development, new homes are really not paying for the development; they're paying a 10% fee of that. And so it's just really a dime in the bucket, from my opinion. So that's one part. The other part, and I think I hit on it a little bit, it's a disproportionate area. If you've got a starter home and they're being tagged with the same impact fee as $1 million home, where's the parity in that? But that's the way the state law reads. I don't think you can pick and choose who gets what. And I think once you're in a city, I don't think they can. I think if they waive it for one, they got to waive it for all. I don't think you can pick and choose which ones you do and you don't. So I told them for housing affordability, it's going to be a killer. Mm-hmm. And I think, how many houses has Habitat built in College Station the last?
Not very many.
Not very many.
Maybe 3 in the last few years.
Yeah, and that's what's happening in the marketplace. And I tried to explain that to them too. I said, we got a unique situation here. We have twin cities, and you start getting too expensive over here to build, well, it'll go to the other. That's exactly what's happening. It used to be in College Station, or Bryan College Station, every 5 permits, 4 were in College Station.
Wow.
Now, Bryan's building more than College Station. Now, in fairness, College Station is building a more expensive house on average than what Bryan is, and for that reason, but there's just been a big housing boom over the city of Bryan right now, and it's primarily due to that. It's not just due to that, but that's a big factor. The other thing that's really, in all fairness, that College Station has less land to develop. College Station has more demand. Everything else equal, same price. There's more demand in College Station. It's a newer town. It just is. And then the other thing hurting them, though, is a lot of their regulatory. I thought this too, that for instance, they make you have concrete streets in College Station. They don't write you as asphalt. They have block length regulations, and I can go into what that is, but in essence, it means more streets in a subdivision than what Bryan or some other cities have. And we build all over, and College Station has got, that's probably the only one I know that's got some of this block length stuff, versus Waco doesn't have it, Killeen doesn't have it, Conroe doesn't have it. I mean, so anyway, you add all that together and total it up, and I'm going to give you an example. About a $1,400 or $1,500 square foot house today in Bryan versus College Station is about a $30,000 difference.
Wow.
And I mean,
some of that is land as well, though, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I just said. It's not just impact fees, But the thing about the impact fee, people go, well, $7,500 more. Well, wait a minute. You also, the builder's got to borrow money for the $7,500, so you have the interest carry on that, plus additional loan fees, plus title policy. That $7,500 is probably more like $10,000 to $12,000 by the time you add all these extra things to it. And that's what's reflected in the final price. And so that's what people are paying. So that's my argument. And what I really hate is that wonderful places even like Habitat cannot get into the mainstream in College Station without something extremely creative going on.
Right.
Which I hope does. And they talk a lot about affordable housing there, but I'm just going, put your money where your mouth is.
I see.
And anyway, so I represent that side of it. And I love College Station, don't get me wrong. It's not Bryan versus, it's not really about that. It's a tale of two cities doing things differently, different attitudes.
Right.
And then it's a good litmus test on what happens when that occurs. And sometimes there's unintended consequences, and I think this is one of them. Here's what I hate about impact fees. All the people initiating these impact fees already live in their homes, right? So is it going to affect them?
Probably not.
No, not at all. So what we're going to do is tax people that are going to have homes built. And by the way, who are those people? Oh, we don't know yet. We don't know who they are. So you're levying a tax on somebody that doesn't even know who they are going to be, because it may come 5 years down the road when you build a new house.
Right.
Well, that person's got to pay it. Well, you didn't. Well, where's the parity in that? I think if they do that, okay, fine, let's make this thing retroactive 10 years. Everybody bought houses the last 10 years. You pay the impact fee too. Let's be even on that. Let's see how quickly that would pass. And so that's one of my big problems with it, is that it's easy to legislate stuff on someone else, but oh no, keep mine right where it is. And that's the philosophy there is.
So do you remember, you said you were involved in discussions about impact fees when they first were in College Station considering doing this. Do you have any idea when that was as a reference point? Was that about 10 years ago or more?
No, yeah, more than 10 years. The first time it came up was before '08.
Okay.
When the housing bust hit. Didn't hit here as bad, but they discussed it then. Then the bust went on, and everybody goes, oh, not the time to do that. Then it's brought back up, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
And that's when it's enacted. But and the College Station's credit, I mean, they did a lot of forums. They listened to us. They did a very good job on that. There's a lot of back and forth. It's really just the will of the council.
Yeah.
And that was their will. So that's what they've got. I've often said, do it. We'll just see what happens. And I think we're seeing what's happened.
So from your perspective, not being a fan of these impact fees, there's some decisions I think that may be coming up in the council. What would be your goal for decisions? Are you trying to get them to totally get rid of it or make some changes to the impact fee regime?
Well, me personally, I'm not very involved in it.
Okay.
I have been. They know exactly the way I feel. And so I think others are trying to get some things reenacted but from what I see, I just don't see how that's going to really occur. I think something else is interesting too. I remember when the economy really went down, there were several cities that went in and repealed their impact fees.
Just to get people to come and build?
Which, if that's the case, they're already admitting it's a hindrance to growth. Well, that's kind of like a self-admittance.
Yeah.
They're admitting, okay, we know that, and so that was always kind of fascinating to me. I will say this again for fairness. A lot of the high growth cities in Texas are the ones that have impact fees. The growth is going on so fast, it's actually a way either to intentionally or otherwise slow it down, or at least they're paying part of it. Yeah. And we're just talking residential apartment complexes, doctors' offices, anything built. It's all about the size of the
water pipes
and
the
water
sewer
pipe,
and stuff, right?
And residential is a 3/4 inch. So that's what it is. But some of these places require 4 inch. I mean,
sure.
And they could be $1 million for an impact fee. So it affects not just single family. It affects commercial and a lot of things. But as I say, a lot of the cities that are very progressive, that have got a lot of growth, they implement them, and we did studies on that, on what different cities charge, and then kind of did a comparison. I think College Station did a fair job on that, trying to drop it in the bucket of something that was equal type cities, and so they weren't completely out of line. It just wasn't aligned with my line.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to say about impact fees?
No, I wish we could find another way to take care of the problem that's a little more equally yoked and not just set on new home buyers, because I think that's what's happening, and I think it's just unequitable. So anyway, yeah, it's always easy to criticize. It's hard to come up with a good idea sometimes.
Sure.
The thing I would say is it's always worked before the way we do it. I mean, it's just a party. You know, we all go down these roads.
Right.
It's not, those roads aren't built just to take you to a new subdivision.
True.
We all go down those roads, and ultimately that's where they lead. And to me, if you can spread that around more people, it's less per person. And as cities grow, there's more people to pay the taxes. So it's to me, that's the way we had it's more equitable than the impact fee.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this was Randy French, former owner of Stylecraft Builders. Thanks for talking to us about impact fees.
My pleasure. Thank you.